Hi, it's great to have the opportunity to talk to you today about open access publishing and transformative agreements in Maynooth University. Myself and my colleague Grace will give you an overview of what options you as researchers have to publish your work open access by utilising our broad range of so-called transformative agreements. This, of course, isn't the only channel for publishing your work open access, and I know my colleagues will be discussing this week other avenues to open access publishing. But just in terms of publishing your work open access through transformative agreements, Maynooth University, as a member of the IReL consortium, has played its part in helping to transition towards cost-neutral open access by working to secure an unprecedented number of open access agreements with key scholarly publishers across a wide breadth of subject areas. So today we want to talk briefly about what open access publishing is and to look at these transformative agreements that are in place with publishers that allow researchers to publish their research open access in thousands of journals at no cost to themselves. We'll also outline the library supports and resources that are available to researchers looking to make their work open access, and we'll detail some of the benefits associated with making research open access. And then we'll just finish off by looking at some future developments in open access publishing. But just to begin briefly to look at what we mean when we talk about open access. So open access is literature that's digital, online and free of charge and free of most copyright and licensing restrictions. So basically open access articles are those that are freely available online to everybody who wants to access them. Open access publishing is part of a wider open movement to encourage the free exchange of knowledge and resources in order to widen access and encourage creativity. So there is this big push for greater open access, and it means that there's a number of routes for researchers to publish their work open access, which is great. The one that a lot of people probably know about is gold open access, and this refers to publisher provided open access. And this is what myself and Grace deal with when we're working with transformative agreements. Gold open access allows the final published version of a research publication to be made free to read immediately on the publisher's website. And there's two types of gold open access. There's pure gold open access, and this refers to fully open access journals with all papers freely accessible in a publisher's journal. And then there's hybrid open access. And in this case, subscription-based journals will have a mixture of open access content and content that readers have to pay for. In both gold cases, there are costs associated with publishing that need to be met. So all hybrid and some fully open access journals charge an author a one-off fee or article processing charge to have their articles published open access. And the average cost of these charges is around €3,000. So in the traditional publishing model, this charge, in the case of hybrid journals, is in addition to the subscription fee that's charged to libraries or readers to access the content. And this situation is often referred to as double dipping. Transformative agreements then are having an impact on how this model works, but they're not the perfect solution to make research available open access. And we'll talk a little bit about this in a minute. But because of the issues with transformative agreements, the research community is keen to explore other routes of open access beyond the traditional subscription model. And one of these routes is diamond open access. And this just refers to open access journals that are free to readers to access and for authors to publish in. And what's good about these journals is that they're often community driven and supported by institutions or national infrastructures. And there is a large range of them, largely in the science area. And recently there was an action plan for diamond open access published by Science Europe. And it set out to its aim was to develop and expand a sustainable community driven diamond open access scholarly communication ecosystem. And then finally, there's also green open access, and this is repository-based open access. And in Maynooth's case, our repository is IReL, and this is where author-accepted e-prints, whether preprint or postprint, can be deposited with the university. And again, these are free to publish and free to read. So they're just some of the different types of open access, and there are others such as bronze and black open access, but we don't have time to go into them today. So what we are focusing on is transformative agreements and gold open access publishing in this paper. So Maynooth University, as a member of IReL, has been part of the movement to move away from paying a subscription fee to publishers to get access to content, and then this content being closed to anyone outside the university, and to successfully secure an open access publishing and subscription access in one annual fee, not the double dipping that we talked about above. This has resulted in the signing of an unprecedented number of transformative agreements, often referred to as offsetting or read and publish or publish and read agreements, which have fundamentally altered how libraries and institutions pay for journal content from publishers, and it's also accelerated open access publishing in the process. These agreements have facilitated a move from, say, reader-sided fees to author-sided fees, and this makes for a more transparent and competitive and efficient system. And the agreements are more transparent than, say, traditional journal licenses because they allow authors to retain copyright. So what does this mean for you as researchers here at Maynooth? Well, thanks to the transformative agreements, the academic community can now publish their research open access immediately in over 11,000 journal titles across 24 publishers. The inclusion of a set number of article processing charge waivers in these agreements mean that researchers can publish a significant number of their articles open access in these journals at no extra cost to themselves. And it's really great for us to be able to say that thanks to the engagement and support of the academic community, there's been a tremendous uptake of all our open access deals that are available. And in real terms, this uptake would have cost nearly €250,000 of researcher facing charges, but this has been covered by the deals instead. And these deals continue to increase, and in this year alone we've added to them. So we have now a deal with the American Psychological Association, with Rockefeller University, and with PLOS, bringing the total number of transformative agreements to 24. And hopefully you can see on this slide just the breadth of publishers that are involved, and this ensures that researchers from all disciplines can make their research open access if they choose to do so. So what impact have these transformative agreements had? Well, you can see from this slide here that there's been a huge growth in the number of articles enabled open access in Ireland since 2019. And ESAC now estimate that over 60% of Ireland's open access research has been published immediately through these transformative agreements. Despite the breadth of the deals and the fact that no two of them are the same, the actual process for you as researchers to make your research open access is really quite straightforward, and it's often easier than other publishing avenues. All publishers have step-by-step guides for making your articles open access, but we just want to look at one example here from Springer Nature. They've set out their open access publishing process that you can see here. And once an article has been editorially accepted for publication, the author will receive an email with a link to complete the publishing agreement. And all the steps are set out in the email. If you're eligible for open access publishing through a transformative agreement, a welcome message appears, and this provides further information on the agreement itself, including things like if the article is eligible and if there are what the licensing types are. And at this point, you can click the link to submit your article for approval for open access publishing. And if that's what you want to do, then it'll come to us in the library for approval via a publisher dashboard. So then myself and Grace will go into the dashboard, and this is what we see when we go into it. And what we check for is that you as the corresponding author, that is the person who handles the manuscripts and the correspondence during the publication process, that you use your Maynooth email address, and that you're a member of Maynooth staff at the point of submission of the article. If all those boxes are ticked, then we will approve your article for open access publishing. And again, you'll receive an email from the publisher detailing the next steps. And your article will be immediately available online at no extra cost to yourselves for everyone to read. So it's a really simple process, but there are different elements in each deal, and we've set up a number of resources that are available for you to get information about this. And I'm just going to hand over to Grace now, who will go through these now.
Thanks, Ruth. So hi everyone, I'm Grace and I work with Ruth and the library on Transformative Agreements. So here I wanted to talk to you about some of our library resources. We provide information on open access and our transformative agreements through various channels. Detailed information on our agreements can be found in our open access LibGuide, and I have the link left for you here. This is the best place to start your open access journey. Here we have information on each deal and which journals are covered under each agreement. We also have information on choosing a Creative Commons license. We also use social media, and here we use the library social media account, so it's @library_mu, and I have left it for you here. And then we also have a dedicated email for any open access queries, and that's library.openaccess@mu.ie. So just to show you here, this is what our open access LibGuide looks like in the library. So this is what you'll see when you navigate to the page. It's very easy to use, and we have a different tab here for each publisher. So if you're interested in a particular publisher or a particular deal, you just click in and you have a look here. It is worth noting one of the tabs is called Choosing a License, and it links here to a Creative Commons tool that helps users find the right license for them by answering a series of questions. So if you're not very familiar with Creative Commons, I would strongly suggest that you go here and have a look, and it's very useful and makes it very easy to find out what's the right license for you. We also use the library social media account, as I said, at the library here for promoting open access. We provide information about new deals. We let users know how many APCs or article processing charges are left for different publishers. And we also engage with staff and students on OA and transformative agreements that may be of particular interest to their department, or even to congratulate them on publishing OA via the agreements. So you can see here we have an interaction with one of our staff in the chemistry department. And then over here we have another tweet advising users that the APCs were running out for one of the particular deals. So if you want to get the most up-to-date information on OA, if you follow library_mu, you'll find it there. We also have recently created a library email address for open access. So this is the go-to place for any queries on open access in general, any queries on the transformative agreements, corresponding authors, licensing, and APCs. So this email address is monitored Monday to Friday by the OA team, and we're always happy to receive queries. We also send targeted emails to staff and students that are active users on our agreements, updating them on any developments. So for example, if we have a user who uses one of our particular agreements very heavily, we'll let them know if there's any changes coming up that we think might affect them in publishing their work. So what about the benefits of open access publishing? Well, there are various benefits, I'm sure some of which you've heard already. Just to outline a few, one of the big ones, and this has become especially important during COVID, is the benefit to society. For example, so countries who may not be able to pay for research that is kept behind a paywall, thanks to open access, they can now access a lot of great research. Another one is that typically the author is allowed to retain copyright and that their article will receive higher citation rates. Increasingly, receiving funding includes publishing open access as a requirement. So if you apply for a grant or any kind of funding, you'll see it's becoming very common that publishing open access is part of this. Another great benefit of open access is also that increases visibility of your work and readership, and it also fosters collaboration between colleagues in the same field. So here are some examples from 2 publishers showing that those who publish open access receive significantly more downloads and citations and have a higher altmetric score. So you can see here one from Taylor and Francis and one from Wiley. So what's next for open access? Well, there will be new agreements will continue to be added. So as Ruth mentioned, we had 3 new already this year. We would expect more next year. Our most recent one was the American Psychological Association. So this is, highlighting there's an increase in non-STEM agreements, so the social sciences, arts and humanities, etc. So to give you an example of some of the breadth of journals that are included that you may not have been aware of, Our Oxford University Press deal has journals like Early Music and the Oxford Art Journal. And then our deal with Sage has journals like Medieval History Journal and Personality and Social Psychology Review. So people often tend to think that open access is only about STEM, but if you work or study in arts and humanities or social sciences, these deals can be very useful for you. So just don't be afraid to get in touch with us if you have any queries about this. And we expect to see this trend continue. So we do expect to see more arts and humanities and non-STEM deals increase in the future as well. So just to sum up, publishing open access and using our transformative agreements, we think it's good for you, it's good for your readers, and will give you a broader scope, and also it's good for society as a whole. So thank you very much for listening. If you have any queries, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us at library.openaccess@mu.ie, and Ruth and I will be very happy to respond to them. So any questions, don't be afraid to get in touch. That's what we're here for. So thanks very much.